There we go. Welcome, everybody. This is SAT Writing and Language Crash Course Day 2, Part 1. We've got a very small, intimate class today. It's just me and Caroline today. I think the rest of the class is on Easter break, probably traveling, just taking the day off, which is entirely okay. They can catch up on the recordings. So welcome, everybody, joining us. So before the recording started, Caroline and I were discussing going over the rules for writing quickly before the class starts, and just kind of review those. So let's go over those together. And I guess if you have questions as we're going along, Caroline, I'm going to have you feel free to ask those questions, and we'll just kind of go rule by rule. So let's see, punctuation. I guess actually I'll just go through these real quick, and please stop me if there's something you want me to clarify. Periods break up two standalone statements. That's very familiar, I take it. Do you have questions about that or no? No? Okay, good. Commas, whenever you need a brief pause. The key is if you need a pause. If you don't need a pause, leave it out. It's not where you can take a pause, it's where you need a pause. Okay, that's the first half of the rule. And the second half of the rule is make sure that you're not using a comma to connect two standalone thoughts. There you have to have a period or a semicolon. Questions about that, or are we good?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, great. All right, and then the semicolon, as referenced previously, is used to connect two related statements that can stand on their own as complete sentences. If you're testing proper use of the semicolon, really all you have to focus on, don't worry about whether they're related or not. I mean, I assume that they are if they're throwing a semicolon in there. The real question is, the only thing that they're going to test you on is whether or not you have two standalone statements, two complete thoughts connected by a semicolon. That's all you have to worry about.
Okay.
And if there are two related statements that can stand on their own as complete thoughts, then yes, you can use a semicolon there. Okay. Colons, one of the trickier and more unfamiliar punctuation signs, I think, that most students before studying for the SAT aren't super familiar with, and certainly don't use in their own writing. I use it all the time now. They introduce a list, explanation, or description. As for a list, it can even be a list of one item. Just make sure you don't use a colon after the phrase such as or for example, because that's kind of what the colon means, right? So it'd be a little bit redundant if you had a colon after the phrase such as or for example. And then the use of the colon will always appear in this order. The thing to be listed, explained, or described first, then the colon, and then lastly the list, explanation, or description. And if it's in that order, you can use it. You got proper use of the colon. If it's not in that order, something is off, it's not proper use of the colon. Okay, and we're going to see lots of examples of proper use of the colon on these practice tests. Any questions about the colon?
No.
No? Okay. All right, now the M dash, keep in mind there's just a single M dash and a double M dash here, but for the single M dash, you can use a single M dash anywhere you can use a colon. So all the same rules that apply for the colon apply to the M dash. The big distinction is that there's a double M dash. There's no such thing as a double colon. Double M dash. And then that's for list, explanations, or descriptions in the middle of a sentence. Okay, and we see that example here. All the creative elements of a film, M dash, casting, acting, cinematography, effects, and editing, M dash are the responsibility of the director. Okay. Any questions about the double M dash?
No.
Okay. All right. Possessives are all about placement of the apostrophe. So if you see the apostrophe after the L in girl, we're talking about one girl, and the sweater belonged to one girl. If the apostrophe after the S, we know we're talking about the sweater belonged to a group of girls or multiple girls. Okay, we see the plural form of the possessive here. In the boys' favorite game is football. Again, we know it's plural because the apostrophe denotes possession. It's after the S in boys, so we're talking about the favorite game of the boys, multiple boys here. Okay, questions about that?
No.
All right. Commonly confused possessives with no apostrophes. This is ones we mess up all the time, especially in texting. It's, your, and their are possessive forms without apostrophes, right? And if you see them with the apostrophe, I think the best way to know if you're using the right form is to break it up into two separate words. When you see it's with apostrophe, break it up into it is, and you know if you're using the right form or not. So you could say it's with apostrophe, or break it up into its two separate words here. We'd say it's going to rain. It is going to rain. Okay, so that makes sense. That's great. But if we saw it's with an apostrophe right here, and we'd read it, the dog ate it is food. That doesn't make any sense. We know we're not using the right form there. So always break up it's there and your into the two separate words, just to make sure you know you're using the right form or not. Okay. All right. Choose the right word in context. These are tricky questions. These in logical order, I think, are some of the toughest questions. There's a specific method that I've got outlined here in the first bullet point. We will practice that method. I think that's the best way to go over that. And here's the four main relationships of contrast words. Basically identify the relationship between two ideas, and once you know the relationship between the two ideas being connected, then you know which transition word to use. Again, we'll practice that.
Okay.
Commonly confused words: accept versus accept, effect and effect, access and excess. I think the key there is A for action. If you see a verb form, you know you have to use the A form of the word. Okay. And then, although there is a noun form of access, so if you have like access to, state secrets or something like that, that's also a thing. But if you've got a verb form, you have to have the A form of all those words. Precede means to come before. Proceed means to continue. Then is for sequence, the order things happen in, and then than with an A is comparison. Who, whom, and whose, pretty straightforward, except for whom is the tricky part, right? But if you see it's preceded by a preposition, and again, I've got all the list of some of the most common prepositions right at the end of the rules for writing. Those 10 right there are the most common ones you're going to see. So if you see it preceded by a preposition, you need the whom form. So to whom, for whom, of whom, by whom, right?
Okay.
For whom was this intended? By whom was this done? Right? With whom are you going to prom? Right? As opposed to who are you going to prom with? Which doesn't have a preposition before it, so you can use the who form. Whose, of course, is possessive. That's pretty straightforward. So really the only tricky part is when to use whom, but if it's preceded by a preposition, then you know you need the whom form with an M. And then just general vocabulary. So, Caroline, I encourage you strongly, if you've not gotten to the habit yet, I really, really encourage you in all of your work, in all your classes, when you see a word you don't know, practice looking it up. It's the best way, it's the fastest way, it's the easiest way to boost your vocabulary. And then you don't have to do vocab worksheets, which no one wants to do.
Yeah.
And I don't want to assign them. So just do that, and you will see your academic vocabulary expand in a very short period of time. It's always fascinating to hear stories about people like learning foreign languages in like just a matter of months. It's possible, by the way. If you really immerse yourself in a foreign language, you go to the place and you have to study maybe at some level, but it doesn't even require formal study. Just practice it. You can learn foreign language in 6 months. It happens. People do it with some regularity, and within a couple months of just practicing academic English, your vocabulary will expand dramatically. So it's a long-term project, but it's one that sort of compounds over time. It doesn't take a whole lot of extra effort, and plus it's going to help your understanding of whatever material you're reading for your other classes as well. So, but suddenly it turns everything you're doing into SAT prep. So I really highly recommend that.
Okay.
Keep it simple. One of the most commonly tested rules. Basically, you can say it with fewer words. Say it with fewer words. That's it. You don't have to be fancy. You don't have to have fancy sentence structure. A lot of students read like a really complicated looking sentence and they're like, boy, that's a really complex sentence structure. I don't even know what it's saying. That must be the right answer. No, it's the opposite of that. You don't want fancy, complicated stuff. Good writing is clear writing, and clear writing is generally very simple. So go with the clearest and simplest and the shortest. If they're testing you on, keep it simple. Avoid repetitive statements. Look out for anything repetitive. If you see it, you're never being tested on that element of keep it simple. And then when combining two sentences, avoid answer choices with more than one subject. They'll ask. You'll know you're being tested on this because they'll say which of the following answer choices best combines these two sentences, right? Then just avoid the one that has more than one subject. Avoid any answer choice that has a semicolon. Because by definition, it's going to have more than one subject, more than one verb, if you've got a semicolon in there. Good introductions, transitions, and conclusions. Just be aware if they're asking you for a good introduction, sometimes you got to read ahead in a paragraph or in the passage to find out how to introduce an idea that's being presented. That's totally cool. Just like for good conclusions, sometimes you got to go back, right, and reread maybe the first or second paragraph, reread the title to find the main point. It's totally, totally cool. Good transition sentences. They're testing on these, we have a surprise visitor here. Blaze, welcome. Can you hear me, Blaze? Your microphone is on mute at the moment. Let me know if you get that straightened out. If you can hear me, we're just going over the rules for writing. Just a quick refresher with Caroline. So if you get that straightened out, let me know, and let me know if you have any questions. All right. So you know you're being tested on good transitions. What was I saying? What was I saying? Do you recall, Caroline, by any chance? I was doing good transition sentences. I think, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Were.
Yeah. So you know you're being tested on these. It's generally going to be the first sentence in a new paragraph. And a good transition sentence generally is going to reference a previous idea and connect it to a new idea. So that's why the underlined portion is a good transition. This guy right here, because I reference the previous idea in the previous paragraph along with good introductions. Then I lead into the new idea. Good transition sentences are fundamental to good writing. So that's generally good form. Welcome, Ava. Blaze, can you hear me, buddy?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Ava, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, welcome, guys. We got a very, very small class today. I think there's a lot of students that are either traveling on Easter vacation or just not here for whatever variety of reasons. It is Holy Weekend. It is Good Thursday. So Holy Thursday. Ooh, I'm a bad Catholic. Holy Thursday. Good Thursday, boy. So anyway, but that's good. Let's continue. So I was going over the rules for writing very briefly with Caroline, just going through it real quick. So if you have questions as we go along, please stop me. All right. So that's good. Introductions, transitions, and conclusions. Rule number 6, backup claims with relevant evidence. I think we ended with some graph analysis questions on the last session. I recommend when they have a question on a graph, always start with the title, then the y-axis, then the x-axis. Look for a key if they've got one, and then lastly, look at the data. It's going to save you some time, and it's going to help just your understanding of the data being presented in general. Always support claims with specific evidence, as long as it's relevant, and providing examples or definitions of technical and unfamiliar terms is always a good idea. Rule number 7, misplaced modifiers. Just make sure the modifying or descriptive phrase always comes immediately before or immediately after the word that it's modifying. You guys remember the comets example that we went over in the last session?
Yes.
Right. And the issue with it here, right, of course, is that the descriptive clause, the descriptive phrase comes immediately before humans, so it looks like it's humans that are blazing through the night sky for brief periods of time. That's what the sentence structure is suggesting. Just change the order and then and fix it by making sure the descriptive phrase comes immediately before comets, or you could put it at the end of the sentence as well. You could have said, humans have long been fascinated by comets, comma, blazing through the night sky for brief periods of time. That would also be acceptable. Make it match is the most commonly tested rule. Make it match number, we're talking about matching up the verb and the subject in number, that is singular or plural. Pack of wild wolves is roaming through the neighborhood. The pack is the subject, right? And always be careful. They love putting prepositional phrases like of wild wolves between the subject and the verb. All right. A lot of students think wolves is the subject of the sentence. It's not. If it's wolves, then it would have to be plural, but the subject is pack, which is singular, so you need the singular form of the verb to be, which is. If they give you 4 different verb forms and you want to know which ones are singular, which ones are plural, I always recommend testing by plugging in a singular pronoun if you want to find the singular form. So you'd say it is as opposed to it are, right? Or it were. And if you want the plural form, then plug in a plural pronoun like they, right? So you'd say they are, not they is. So just test it with those plural and singular pronouns, and then you know you're using the right form or not. Tense, the idea is if we're talking about events in the past, stay in the past tense. If we're talking events that will happen in the future tense, you need to use the future tense. Just be aware of that. Doesn't mean you can't have different tenses within a sentence. You can, but just events in the past, stay in the past. That's all. Make it match style and tone. If you start seeing stuff that sounds conversational, that is the way people talk, but not the way that you should write in sort of a professional, formal journal article, then they'll probably test you on make it match style and tone. So look for the obviously conversational answer choices and eliminate them. Go with the formal professional tone. Parallel structure. Look for patterns in the sentence structure. Here we've got a pattern of the ing ending, right? Along with running and rock climbing. Surfing is one of my favorite activities. You wouldn't say along with running and rock climbing to surf. It's one of my favorite activities. So look for patterns, keep an eye out for those, and then just continue the pattern. Don't change it up. This is all familiar from the last session?
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah, okay. Do you guys have questions at the moment?
No.
Nope.
Okay. We're just going over real quick, just for refreshing, so that when we see some of the questions coming up, that it's all familiar. Not only is always followed by, but also neither is always followed by nor, either is always followed by or. Compare only directly related ideas. It's tricky to catch, right? But whenever you see a comparison, just make sure it's a good comparison. Compared to working at a desk, marine biologists get a lot more fresh air and exercise. Why is that a bad comparison? Does anybody remember why that's not a great comparison?
Because it's comparing an action to marine biologists.
Yeah, which is a profession, right? It's not marine biologists. It's not an activity. I mean, they do things, but it's not an activity, right? You compare an activity, working at a desk, to a profession. That's a bad comparison. You can compare a profession to a profession or an activity to an activity, but don't compare an activity to a profession. They're tricky to catch, but be on the lookout for them. Logical order. Just make sure that the ideas flow from one sentence to the next, and you're not breaking up the discussion of an idea. Here, the bear population, they're talking about bears and the bear population, and then it's interrupted by a discussion about fish and other wildlife, and then it goes back to bears, right? So that's interrupting the flow of thought. And you know you're using the right logical order by using the sentence sandwich method. That is, you're going to read the sentence before, then you're going to read the sentence in question in the middle, and then read the sentence after. So 3 sentences total when you're testing logical order answer choices. And if it works for both of those, then you know you've got a right answer choice. And then lastly, trust your ear and trust your instincts. You don't always know the right rule. And if you read an answer choice and you're just like, man, that's just awful, right? You don't even have to necessarily know exactly why it's wrong. If you're just like, that just sounds terrible, I know that's not right. Your instincts are probably right. But certainly if you don't know the rule that applies, just go with what sounds good. Trust your ear and trust your instincts. It's always your best bet. It may not always be right, but it's always your best bet. That goes for life in general. Again, go with your gut instinct and your first instinct. Any questions?
Nope.
All right. Let's go to the practice test. Were either of you, by the way, Blaze or Ava, were either of you able to do any of the homework from the last after the last session, finish some of the questions from that PSAT practice test?
Yes, I tried to.
Okay. Were you able to get to some of those, Blaze? If you weren't able to, not a big deal.
Oh, wait, sorry. I actually went to Texas over the weekend.
Oh,
so
cool.
For about 5 days, so I wasn't able.
Yeah.
Dallas.
You're in Dallas. I'm in Dallas. Did you know that?
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. Or I mean, I'm just
That's
outside
awesome.
Dallas. Yeah. What were you doing in Dallas, out of curiosity?
I actually went to a prom.
Okay. Cool. Wow. Wait, which school?
It was just a homeschool one that was set up.
Cool. Really cool. Very cool. All right. Well, that's very cool. Okay. Let's rock and roll. Let's do this. So I think we're starting on question number 17. Caroline, I'll start with you, and then let's just read the sentence, and then we'll answer the questions as we go along.
Okay. So read 17.
18. Start with 17. Do you see the sentence? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Studies have offered several possible reasons that bees are vanishing.
Okay, let's stop there and let's answer question number 17. So go ahead and read question number 17.
Which choice most smoothly and effectively introduces the writer's discussion of studies of CCD in the paragraph?
Okay, man, this is a very, very specific question. Okay, it's a very specific question. I think it's tempting to think they're testing you on transition sentences, right? Going from an older paragraph to new paragraph. And there's sort of an element of that. I mean, this is when they test you, but they're asking you a very, very specific question, which is what answer choice are we supposed to be choosing here, Caroline?
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, like, it's not just which one do you like best. Like, we're looking for specific characteristics in the correct answer choice. What are we looking for?
Well, when I did it, I was thought that like the B, C, and D were too. Like went against the keep it simple point.
Yeah. That's a good point. I wouldn't say they're testing directly on keep it simple. Here's the deal: they're asking you a specific question. right here. Like, compare number 17 where they're asking you a specific question, which choice most smoothly and effectively introduces the writer's discussion of CCD in the paragraph. Very specific question. Compare that to, like, answer choice, or question number 14, right, where it's just answer choices. There's no question there. Do you see that?
Yes.
You know they're testing you on a rule for 14 or for 13 or for 12, right? There's no question there. There's just like, okay, which one's right, right? So you got to think in terms of the rules. But when they ask you a specific question like this one here, you just got to answer the question. Does that make sense? The rules may come into play, but you got to make sure you're answering the question, okay? So we're looking for the answer choice that most smoothly and effectively introduces the writer's discussion of CCD in the paragraph. Okay, it's got to do both of those things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go over this real quick. Which smoothly and effectively introduces the writer's discussions of CCD in the paragraph? First of all, let's read ahead. I want to read the paragraph a little bit just to make sure that we're going to pick an answer choice that's effective. So let's just read that paragraph, okay?
Okay, wait.
So take it from one reason that is often cited.
Okay, one reason that is often cited is the use of pesticides called neon something.
Yeah, neonicotinoids. That's a tricky one to pronounce.
Okay, which are absorbed by plants and linger much longer than do topical pesticides.
Yeah, just as a side note, I think it's interesting is that nicotine, right, as in like tobacco, is actually a very powerful insecticide, which is why the tobacco plant produces it, right? They produce it so that it kills the bugs that try to eat it. But for a long time, nicotine from tobacco was used in some form as an actual insecticide for people's gardens and farmers and things like that. So anyway, I think that's just kind of interesting. Let's keep. Then normally we would stop and answer question number 18, right? But let's just right now, we're not taking a time test. We got all the time in the world right now. Let's just go ahead and finish reading this paragraph, and we'll go back and do 18 in a bit.
Okay. Chemicals such as herbicides and fungicides may also play a role contaminating the pollen that bees typically feed on and what does that say?
Inhibiting.
Okay. Healthy insect
maturation.
Okay.
Maturation or growth, right?
Word.
Yeah, there's a lot. And this is, by the way, when you're doing these practice tests and you see a word you don't know, look it up. Look up maturation. Like, look up neonicotinoids. I mean, you can find a little blurb on it you can read in 10 seconds. When you see a word you don't know, take this as an opportunity to boost your academic vocabulary. Okay, so let's go back to the answer choice. So we got to find the answer choice that most smoothly and effectively introduces the writer's discussion of studies of CCD in the paragraph. So let's read answer choice A again. Let's see if it smoothly and effectively introduces those ideas.
Okay. Studies have offered several possible reasons that bees are vanishing.
Okay, does that smoothly and effectively introduce the writer's discussion of the studies of CCD?
I think so.
Yeah. Is it smooth? Let's start there.
I don't know.
Yeah. Let's think about what that means, right? I appreciate your honesty there. What would the opposite of smooth be? Do you guys have any insight to that? What might the opposite of smooth writing be?
Just choppy.
Choppy.
Kind of?
I think that's the word for sure. Choppy, broken up, right? Is this smooth or is this choppy? In the sense.
It's a little bit choppy.
It's a little bit choppy. Studies have offered several possible reasons that bees are vanishing. Is it effective?
Yes.
I think it's effective. I don't think there's any question about that. Let's hold on to it now because let's compare it to the other answer choices, right? Because we got to find the smoothest and most effective. It's not perfect by any stretch, but we got to find the best answer choice. Let's compare it to answer choice B. Okay, go ahead and read, Caroline. Read answer choice B for me, please.
Okay, bees are vanishing, and according to studies, there are several possible reasons for this trend.
Okay, is that smooth?
It sounds a little bit choppy to me.
A little bit choppy. Why do you say that? I think I agree.
Like the ending kind of just throws me off a little bit. I don't know.
Okay, you guys have any other thoughts on that? Why is B a little bit choppier than A? I think it is as well. There's a comma there, right? So there's a pause there, and there's an pause in answer choice A. By the way, I don't think B sounds bad. It's just a little bit choppier than A. Is B effective?
A little bit. I don't know.
What do you guys think? Is B effective? Does it introduce the discussion of the studies of CCD?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it does as well. So the question is, so they're both effective. The question is, which most smoothly and effectively introduces those discussions, or that discussion? Here's how I like to approach a question like this. Look, we don't have to read all 4 of them and decide which one we like best. Let's just compare 2 at a time, right? And then the one that doesn't work as well, we'll just eliminate it as a potential answer choice. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So which one's better, A or B? Caroline, what did you think was better, A or B? Which one is most smoothly and effectively introduces the discussion of those studies?
I think A was.
What do you guys think? What's smoother? Which most smoothly and effectively introduces the discussion of those studies? What do you guys think?
Probably A. A seems a little bit more effective than B, in my opinion.
I agree as well. I think A is smoother and more effective. So let's eliminate answer choice B for right now. There we go. Okay, good. All right, so B is gone. Ah. Okay. Go ahead and read answer choice C for me, please, Caroline.
Several possible reasons offered by studies may explain why bees are vanishing.
Okay, does that smoothly introduce the discussion of the studies?
I don't know.
Or is that choppy? The opposite.
It was
of smooth.
a little bit choppy.
So a little bit choppy. Right? We've got 2 commas here, right?
Yeah.
We got 2 commas. It may be effective, and in fact, I think it is. But which is smoother, A or C?
A.
A is definitely smoother. Does that make sense, guys? I mean, it's just
Yes.
there's 2 commas here, right? And it's not terrible, but it's just kind of broken up, just by the commas. So I would say A is still smoother. Okay. Does it make sense here when I said we don't have to compare all of the all the answer choices at once? We can just compare 2 at a time, right? Because we've already eliminated B, so now we're just comparing A and C. We can say A is smoother. Okay. What about answer choice D? Delete the underlined sentence. So let's just read the paragraph beginning with the second sentence.
Okay. One reason that is often cited is the use of pesticides called, I can't remember.
Neonicotinoids. You're good.
Okay. Which are absorbed by plants and linger much longer than do topical pesticides.
Okay. How was that? Does that smoothly and effectively?
I don't think it was smooth at all.
No, it's not smooth, nor is it effective. What's the issue there?
It needs an introduction.
Yeah, there's one reason I'm cited for what? Like, what is it's just not. We need something in there. What's the best answer choice here?
A.
It's A. It's A. Now, I'll be honest. When I did this test the first time, I picked B. I picked B because B sounds pretty good, right? Did anybody else pick B? I think you picked A on your own, Caroline. Either of you, Blaze or Ava, did you pick, or Ava, did you pick B by any chance? Maybe not.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did pick B. Yeah, B sounds great. Like, I like it. The issue with B, though, and this is so important, is that it doesn't directly address the question as well as A does. Do you see that now, Ava?
Yes.
They want the one that most smoothly, and so it's got to be smooth and it's got to be effective. I think A and B are equally effective, but A is just smoother because it doesn't have a break in it like B does. It's that simple. So you've got to when they're asking you a specific question, you've got to directly address the question. I can't emphasize that enough. Just making that one change alone is going to give you a score increase if you can make sure you answer the question being asked. They're not saying which one do you like the best or which one would you probably write like. If you were writing this passage. You've got to answer the question. So we need the smooth and effective one, and that's A. All right, let's do 18. Blaze, go ahead and read question 18 for me, please.
Okay. At this point, the writer is considering adding the following sentence. Prolonged exposure to neonicotinoids has been shown to increase bees' vulnerability to disease and parasitic mites.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. should the writer make this addition here?
Okay, good. Let's do the sentence sandwich method here to see if it should be in the paragraph, right? So we'll read the sentence before, one reason that is often cited, read that, then read the sentence in question, plug it in, and then read the sentence after and see if it fits. Okay? So.
Okay. One reason that is often cited is the use of pesticides called neonicotinoids, which are absorbed by plants and linger much longer than do topical pesticides. Prolonged exposure to neonicotinoids has been shown to increase bees' vulnerability to disease and parasitic mites. Chemicals such as herbicides and fungicides may also play a role, contaminating the pollen that bees typically feed on and inhibiting healthy insect maturation.
Okay. All right, what is your instinct there, Blaze? Should the writer make this addition here? What do you think?
I think it does. I think it does need to be added because it gives a little bit more insight on neonicotinoids and other actual things to kill the bees, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just test answer choice A and B. We don't have to worry about C and D. Okay. So go and read answer choice A.
Okay. So yes, because it provides support for the claim made in the previous sentence.
Okay. Does the sentence in question provide support for the claim made in the previous sentence?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does. Okay. What about answer choice B?
Okay. Yes, because it introduces a new idea that will become important later in the passage.
Does that introduce a new idea that will become important later in the passage? Well, let's look real quick through the later in the passage if it talks about neonicotinoids or something like that. I'm just kind of scanning through looking for... Well, that's almost the end of it.
It does mention the fungicides kind of towards the end, I guess.
Okay. So what's better, A or B?
Probably A in this case because it doesn't really have that. It doesn't really mention it enough. I feel like to be B.
Yeah, I mean, there's debate about B, right? Or like maybe, kind of, part of that, maybe, right? But like A, we're like, yeah, does it support the claim made in the previous sentence? Yeah, it does that, right? So between the two, we can confirm it is absolutely answer choice A, and that's the right answer. It's
awesome. Okay.
It is A. Okay, and then we don't have to worry about C and D, right? Now, if we read A and B and didn't like either one, then we can go test C and D, right? But generally, your instincts here, whether or not the addition should be made, your instincts are generally pretty good, and you can generally leave it at that. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Good. Great job. Let's keep going. Good. Let's go to Ava. Go ahead and read the next paragraph, please. Given the role.
Given the role that honeybees play in an agricultural, the impact of this loss of hives on fruit, vegetable, seed, and nut crops is not to be scoffed at.
Okay. What do you think about the underlined portion there, Ava?
It's not the best.
It's not the best, yeah. That bothers me. What bothers? What don't you guys like about it?
It's conversational.
Yeah, I tend to agree with it. Maybe like 1800s conversational. I haven't heard people using the word scoff recently. Like I think of like a Dickens novel or something like that. But it's definitely it's not the way. It's just it's weird. I agree. It's conversational though. And I'm looking at the other answer choices now, and I think I see some other conversational language. Let's eliminate A. We don't like A. What about, do you see any other answer choices that are conversational? And this is definitely what they're testing us on. They're testing us on make it match style and tone.
It's definitely not B.
Definitely not B. Good heavens. Is a pretty big deal. Please. Right. And it's super obvious they're testing you on make it match style and tone when you read answer choice B. In case it wasn't when you read A. Any others?
I feel like C isn't it either.
Yeah, super conversational. I mean, people use that term. Okay, great, but not in writing. You wouldn't expect to see that. Leaves us with D. I hope that's professional and formal. How is that?
It's better.
It's better. Let's plug in D. I want to hear it with D. The whole sentence, please.
Given the role that honeybees play in agriculture, the impact of this loss of hives on fruit, vegetable, seed crops cannot be ignored. Sorry.
Yeah. How does that sound with D plugged in?
It sounds a lot better.
So much better. So much better. Absolutely. And it is deep. Any questions about that, guys?
Nope.
Yeah, even if you read A and you're not sure what rule you're being tested on, once you look at the other answer choices, you're like, it's a pretty big deal, super conversational. Oh, okay, I know what they're testing us on now, right? So again, always look to the answer choices to for clues as to the rule that's being tested. Great job. Caroline, go ahead and read the next sentence, reduction in bee numbers.
Okay. A reduction in bee numbers leads to less pollination, which in turn leads to smaller harvests and higher food prices. Some farmers have resorted to renting hives from beekeepers to pollinate their crops. When there is a shortage of bees, this being an expensive proposition.
Okay. Caroline, what do you think about the underlying portion there?
It does not sound good.
It sounds pretty terrible. Yeah, I would agree with that completely. Do you know what's wrong with it?
They're not two complete sentences.
Yeah, I mean, this appears to be violating the semicolon rule. Yeah, and it just on top of it just sounds bad. Yeah. So, what rule are they testing us on here, Caroline?
Punctuation.
Certainly punctuation, right form of the semicolon, and anything else?
Not that I can.
Yeah, that's the big one. That's the big one right now. So I think we can definitely eliminate A. Can we test any other potentially incorrect answer choices right now?
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, are there any I see one of these answer choices I think we can very easily test. Because I'm not sure what they're testing us on B and C, but I think we can test D pretty easily. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
How can we test to see if D is acceptable or not?
You mean just putting it in?
Well, we could plug it in, but I mean, it's a semicolon, right? So how could we test if it's the right use of the semicolon?
I'm not really sure.
That's all right. No problem. Do you guys have any ideas? How do we test if we've got the right use of the semicolon?
There has to be two complete sentences.
Yeah, I mean the same thing you did for A, honestly, right? Is you've got to have two complete independent thoughts that could stand on their own as individual sentences, right? So you can read the first half or the second half. Let's read the second half of D. See if it can stand alone. Can you hear me, Caroline?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, do you want me to put it in?
I just want to hear you read it. Yeah, so all we have to do is read the second half.
Okay. So just read number B or put it into
just read the second half of D, starting with an expensive proposition.
Okay. An expensive proposition when there is a shortage of bees.
All right, is that a complete standalone thought, Caroline?
No.
No, it's not, right? And so I mean, it was the same issue with A as well. The second half was not a standalone thought. I think the first half is some forms have resorted to renting hives from beekeepers to pollinate. Yeah, the first half is, but the second half of A and D just isn't a standalone thought. So A and D are gone. Okay, now it's either B or C. Caroline, let's plug those in. I want to hear them.
Okay. Some farmers have resorted to renting hives from beekeepers to pollinate their crops. This is an expensive proposition when there is a shortage of bees.
How does that sound to you, Caroline?
That sounds fine, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too bad. Let's try C.
Okay. Some farmers have resorted to renting hives from beekeepers to pollinate their crops. An expensive proposition when there is a shortage of bees.
How's that sound?
I think it sounds fine.
Yeah, I think it sounds all right too. One of these answer choices, however, violates the comma rule. Remember, there's two parts to the comma rule. Let's go to the comma rule real quick. Can you read it for me, Caroline? The comma rule?
Okay. Use commas whenever you need a brief pause. If you don't need a brief pause, leave it out.
Okay, read the next part, because this is the part that I think matters here.
Should not be used to connect two standalone thoughts. There, a period or semicolon should be used.
Ah, okay. I think one of these answer choices here, we've got a comma separating two standalone thoughts.
Is it B?
Yeah, B, right? This is an expensive proposition when there's a shortage of B's. Is a standalone thought. Yeah. And this is where when you see a comma, you really have to read it as a brief pause. Don't take too much of a break there. If you take a bigger pause, you'll read it like a period and it'll sound okay. Right? But if you actually take it as a brief pause, it should sound a little bit weird. Okay? Let me read it with a brief pause. Some farmers have resorted to renting hives from beekeepers to pollinate their crops. This is an expensive proposition when there's a shortage of bees. Sounds a little bit weird, doesn't it?
Yes.
But if you take a longer pause like you would with a period, it sounds okay. That's why you've got to make sure that you read it the way it's written. Brief pause with a comma. Does that make sense? And then just pay attention to use of the comma. Make sure you don't have a comma separating two standalone thoughts.
Okay.
So, but yeah, process of elimination does have to be answer choice C, and C works. Okay. Any questions about number 20, guys?
No.
Actually, I do have one question.
Yeah.
Would B would work if it was just a semicolon
Absolutely.
after crops?
Absolutely.
Correct?
That'd be great. That'd be great. But again, you use a semicolon to separate two standalone thoughts. Yeah. So.
Okay. Cool.
That's not an answer choice. So it's
yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right, Blaze, you're up. Let's read the next sentence beginning with other farmers.
Okay. There we go. Other farmers have increased their dependency on costly hand pollination by human workers.
Okay. What are they testing us on here, Blaze?
Definitely, like whether to use the correct form of the word there.
Yeah. It's commonly confused possessives. Do you remember how we talked about testing whether we're using the right form of there or not?
Yes, it's to do. Well, dang it, it was trying to remember. It's like they are or they is.
Yeah, if you see it with the apostrophe, break it up into its two words. Right. Into they are. Right. So read that with they are. I want to hear it.
Okay, so other farmers have increased their dependence on costly hand pollination by human workers.
That's rough, Blaze. That's rough. Yeah, that ain't right. All right. So it's definitely not A. Can we agree?
Yes.
A is gone. Okay. What do you think? I'll bet we can figure this out now. What do you think the right answer choice is?
It's D there.
Yeah.
Because it's possessive and it's referring to multiple farmers.
Exactly. Right. If it was one farmer, you could maybe go with D, it's, but we're talking other farmers. It's got to be plural. And then C is the plural form of the possessive. That's it. Okay. Questions about that? Or are we good?
We're good.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All right. You see the usefulness of breaking up into two different words, though, right? It makes the incorrect answer choices obviously incorrect. A lot of kids will look at that and be like, well, we need a possessive. Oh, it's got an apostrophe. It's possessive. No. It's a contraction, not a possessive. Okay. Great job. Ava, go ahead and read the next sentence from furthermore.
Furthermore, there may be sociological repercussions. Agroecologist Alexandra Maria Klein has suggested that rising produce prices should lead to an increase in obesity as people turn to cheaper, less wholesome fare.
Okay, good. What are you laughing at?
I don't know.
Okay.
Though the precise causes of CCD are yet unclear, some common sense measures may be taken. A decrease in the use of certain pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, as well as greater attention to the nutrition, habitat, and genetic diversity of the managed hives, could begin a shift in favorable direction.
Excellent. Okay, great. Now go ahead and read question number 22.
The writer wants a conclusion that addresses the future efforts to combat CCD. Which choice results the passage having the most appropriate concluding sentence?
Okay, super specific question here. Very specific. What answer choice are we looking for, Ava?
One that combats, that addresses the future of efforts to combat CCD.
Yes, very, very specific. It's not just which one you like the best. No, we got to find the conclusion that addresses the future efforts to combat CCD. Okay, so let's test these answer choices. We'll start with A, no change. So what they mean here by no change, they mean the last sentence as it is right now. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So go ahead and read the last sentence and see if that addresses future efforts to combat CCD.
A decrease in the use of certain pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, as well as greater attention to the nutrition, habitat, and genetic diversity of managed hives, could begin a shift in a favorable direction.
Okay, does that address the future of efforts to combat CCD?
Yes.
That appears to. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, can't eliminate that. Let's read the other answer choice. Go ahead and read answer choice B.
Still, bee colonies have experienced such devastating losses, and consequences of issue have been felt worldwide.
Does that address the future of efforts to combat CCD?
It doesn't address the combating part of it.
Yeah, not so much. Okay, so B is gone. Good. What about answer choice C?
Although CCD is a relatively new phenomenon, scientists have been studying other aspects of honeybees for over a century.
Does that address future efforts to combat CCD?
No.
Nope. Okay, great. Answer choice D. Go ahead and read that for me, please.
Genetic variation in bee colonies generally improves bees' productivity, disease resistance, and ability to regulate body temperature.
Okay, does that address the future of efforts to combat CCD?
No.
No, it does not. Do you see how easy this is if you just keep the question in mind when you test the answer choices? Brutally easy. Brutally easy here. As long as you keep the question in mind. Know what the question's asking you and then just test that. Any questions about number 22? Or does that make sense?
Nope.
That makes complete sense.
Yeah. Okay, great. Let's keep rolling. Caroline, go ahead and take the next passage. Start with the title. Always read the title of these passages, and we'll address the questions as they pop up.
Okay. Lunar farming.
Good.
Late last autumn, Giuseppe Ferrara?
Yeah, so it's Italian here, so it's Giuseppe Ferrua.
Oh wow.
Okay. Oh yeah, but you said what you said will work. By the way, don't when you're reading these, you're taking these tests, certainly on a time test, don't waste any time worrying about pronunciation or anything like that. I mean, like just be like GF, whatever, or just G.
Okay.
Like just don't waste any mental energy on pronouncing things properly.
Okay. So Ferrua stood on the hillside he farms overlooking Italy's Serchio River Valley, a landscape of low mountains dotted with vineyards.
Okay, let's start with number 23. What do you think about A, no change? You can reread it if you need to.
I don't think it's right.
Yeah, what's wrong with it? Read it again.
The comma doesn't seem like it should be there.
Yeah, I agree. This is bad, and I don't think we need a comma or a pause there. Let's eliminate A. Can we eliminate any other obviously incorrect answer choices?
B.
Yeah, why B?
Because it's not a complete two sentences.
Yeah, and you don't need a pause on top of there, but absolutely. We don't have two independent standalone thoughts. Okay.
And also get rid of C.
Yeah, why?
Because it just doesn't make sense to put a dash there.
Yeah, I mean, it violates the M- rule. There's no explanation, description, or a list there of standing or just. I mean, there's just no, and you don't need a pause on top of it all. Can you plug in answer choice D? I want to hear it without a pause there.
Okay. Late last autumn, Giuseppe Ferrara stood on the hillside he farms overlooking Italy's Serchio River Valley.
Great. Better?
Yes.
Absolutely. It is D. Questions about that, guys?
Nope.
Okay, great. Number 20. Because you did, because you read that. Go ahead and do 24 as well. Let's do 24, Caroline.
Okay.
Just take it from a landscape.
Where should I start?
Just take it from a landscape.
Okay. A landscape of low mountains dotted with vineyards. That sounds fine.
Yeah. Do you want to try plugging in the other answer choices? Let's try that.
Sure. A landscape of low mountains dotted inside vineyards.
How's that?
No, that doesn't sound right.
No, that ain't right.
A landscape of low mountains dotted for vineyards. No.
No.
A landscape of low mountains dotted on vineyards. No.
No, the mountains are not on the vineyards. No. Yeah, answer choice A is that. This is just choosing the right word in context. That's all this is right here. You got to pick the right preposition. Only one makes sense. That's it.
Okay.
Any questions about that?
Nope.
No? Okay, great. Great job, Caroline. Blaze, you're up.
Okay. I'll just read the next sentence.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Ferua grows grapes and olives, and he does so according to the phases of the moon. He didn't always farm this way. When he began, he exercised modern, one-size-fits-all farming methods, but he says he soon became. Oh my God, sorry, I'm
You're good. You're good, dude.
Sorry, okay. All right, so one-size-fits-all farming methods, but says he soon became convinced that plants are completely prone to elements in the cosmos, the rhythms of day and night. Following the lunar calendar, this type of farming is driven by the belief that the moon influences levels of moisture in the soil, just as the moon's gravitational pull affects great bodies of water. Lunar farmers believe, for example, that from the new moon to quarter moon phases, when the moon is waxing, a soil's moisture content increases, whereas drier periods occur during the waning phase. Waning phase.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. So, do you know what rule they're testing us on here for number 25, Blaze?
Let me see. Lunar farmers believe, for example.
This is. I'm not sure we've done one of these yet. I don't think we have. This is choosing the right word in context, rule number 3. This is a transition words question. Okay? Whenever you see transition words like furthermore, likewise, moreover, therefore, because, for example, for instance, they're testing you on transition words. Okay? I want you to read the first bullet point. There's a formula I recommend using for transition word questions. Go ahead and read that first bullet point for me, please.
Okay, so for transition word questions, follow this formula. 1, read the sentence before the one with the transition word.
Okay.
2, read the following sentence without reading the underlying transition word. 3, identify the relationship between the two ideas and pick the matching transition word.
Okay, let's do that method, okay? So we're going to start with reading the sentence before the one with the transition word. So that would be the first sentence in the question, right here, following the lunar calendar. We're going to read that. All right. Then we're going to read the second sentence, the one with the transition word, but we're going to read it without the transition word, right? Because we don't want that to sort of influence the way we're going to understand the relationship between the two ideas. Okay? And then we'll decide what the relationship is. So let's read those two sentences in order, one after the other, without the transition word.
Okay. So, following the lunar calendar, this type of farming is driven by the belief that the moon influences levels of moisture in the soil, just as the moon's gravitational pull affects great bodies of water. Lunar farmers believe that from the new moon to quarter moon phases, when the moon is waxing, a soil's moisture content increases, whereas drier periods occur during the waning phase.
Okay. So we've got 4 main relationships that generally these transition words are going to describe. It's either a relationship of similarity, relationship of contrast, relationship of providing examples, or relationship of cause and effect. And those are all on the rules for writing. Here's contrast, similarity, cause and effect, providing examples. Okay. What do you think the relationship between those two sentences is?
I'm not really sure. It's
no problem.
Kind of vague.
Let's look at it from this way, from another perspective. I'm looking at the answer choices, and if you see more than one answer choice of the same relationship, as a general rule, you can eliminate those 2 answer choices if they indicate a similar relationship. Does that make sense? What 2 answer choices indicate the same kind of relationship?
So it would be B and C because those kind of have the same use as, for example.
Yeah, those are both contrast transition words, right? So they're not going to give you 2 correct answer choices if it's a contrast relationship. So I wouldn't even worry about those right off the bat. Now, again, I mean, there are a few exceptions to that I've seen. But as a general rule, when you see two of the same, or three sometimes, of the same relationship, just eliminate them. Don't worry about them. Okay?
Okay, so I guess D as well then.
So, well, that's not contrast, right? What's the relationship for D?
Oh, they would be more like, I guess, just thereafter. I mean,
yeah, that would be a sequence relationship. First this,
following,
then, right? Yeah, following that, right? Does that work in this context or no?
Lunar farmers believe thereafter that it could.
Plug it in. I want to hear it.
Okay, so lunar farmers believe.
Well, I guess we're going to have to read the two sentences.
Oh, okay. Okay, so following the lunar calendar, this type of farming is driven by the belief that the moon influences levels of moisture in the soil, just as the moon's gravitational pull affects great bodies of water. Lunar farmers believe thereafter that from the new moon to quarter moon phases, when the moon is waxing, a soil's moisture content increases, whereas drier periods occur during the waning phase.
How does that sound?
It sounded okay. I mean, not amazing, but
yeah. I would agree, not amazing. What's better, A or D?
Probably A, right?
What do you guys think? A or D?
A.
It's A. Absolutely, right? Now look at the second sentence here. It's an example, right, of how the moon influences moisture levels in the soil. Right? They say from when the moon is waxing, the soil's moisture content increases, whereas dry periods occur in the waning phase. That's an example, specific example of this general idea of how the moon influences moisture levels in the soil. Does that make sense? Why A works?
Yes.
All right. So here's the general idea and then the example in the second sentence. So that's it. It is answer choice A. Questions about that? Anyone?
Nope.
Those are tough questions to answer. Really tough. But look, even if you just keep in mind, remember that you're generally, if you can see two of the same relationship, you can eliminate those. Even if that's as far as you got a 50-50 shot on a tough problem, which isn't bad. But generally here, like I said, I mean, you can, if you take the time and use the method, you can figure it out. Okay? Let's do, Ava, you are up next. Go take it from question 26, although moisture.
Although moisture influences seed germination, a lunar guide on when to a plant and weed can be... Oh, sorry, I think I wrote that wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Although moisture influences seed germination, a lunar guide on when to plant seed and weed...
Did you finish that, Ava? I think you're cutting out just a little bit.
I would say... I wouldn't say A. I would probably say given that.
Yeah, do you know what rule we're being tested on here?
I'm not sure.
Does anybody know what rule?
Is it a transition?
It's also transition words. Yeah, it is like 25. We've got two transition word questions in a row. Although would be a contrast relationship, given that I think would be cause and effect. Transition word. So could potentially be cause and effect. Not certain about that. Let's do this. Now, this is one of the exceptions to the fact that the two ideas being related here are in the same sentence. There's two distinct ideas here. Okay? So here's what I want you. I want you to read the first half of the sentence before the comma without the transition word, and then read the second half of the sentence, and I want to hear those two in order. Okay? Can you do that for me, Ava?
Okay. Moisture influences seed germination.
Okay.
A lunar guide.
Then the second half.
A lunar guide on when to plant and weed can be advantageous to a grower.
Yeah, advantageous. So, okay. So what is the relation between those two ideas? Moisture influences seed germination, and then a lunar guide on when to plant and weed can be advantageous to a grower. What's the relationship there?
Because it said a previous sentence that the moon affects moisture.
So what's the relationship, though, between those two ideas in that sentence? Moisture influences seed germination, and then a lunar guide on when to plant and weed can be advantageous to a grower. Is that either similarity, cause and effect, contrast, or providing examples?
Cause and effect?
Yeah, I think it's cause and effect. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Yeah, does that make sense? Right? Because moisture influences seed germination. Because of that fact, that causes a lunar guide on when to plant and weed to be advantageous. Does that make sense? I think we can eliminate some answer choices here. We can eliminate A, because it's not contrast. We know that. What about D? Ava?
Moisture influences seed germination. A lunar guide on when to plant and weed can be advantageous to a grower.
Do you guys see what's wrong with answer choice D?
It doesn't really show the cause and effect as much as you want it to.
Yeah, that's one issue. There's another issue too. It violates a rule. What rule does it violate?
Would it be the comma rule?
Absolutely, Blaze. It violates the comma rule. Right? Do you see that, guys? If you go with D, if you delete that, moisture influences seed germination. Standalone thought. You got a subject, you got a verb, complete thought. A lunar guide on when to plant and weed can be advantageous to a grower. Another complete thought. Separated by comma. Can't be D. What's better, B or C? Ava, what do you think is better, B or C?
B.
What did you say? I'm sorry?
B.
Yeah, it is B. Absolutely. And it is that cause and effect relationship. Okay. Questions about that?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. Let's keep rolling. Great job, Caroline. Or Ava. Great job. Caroline, you are up next.
Okay. Nature has been around forever.
All right.
First century.
And then let's read question number 27.
Okay. Which choice most effectively sets up the paragraph?
All right. I apologize. I think you can hear a screaming baby in the background. I've got 4 little ones, and every once in a while they remind me of their presence. All right, in the room next door. Okay, so we need to read the paragraph right before we decide how to most effectively set up the paragraph. Okay. Now, normally on a timed test, I'd recommend just reading and kind of answering like 28 and 29 as we go along, and then come back to 27. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That'd probably be the best use of time. Here we've got unlimited time at the moment. We're just practicing, these applying the rules and answering these questions. So let's just read the whole paragraph, and then we'll see which most effectively sets up the paragraph. Okay.
Okay. So nature has been around forever. First century Roman naturalist
Pliny, I think. Yeah, Pliny.
The Elder stated in his Natural History that the moon replenishes the earth when she approaches it and fills all bodies, while when she recedes, she empties them. Chinese and Egyptian people performed agricultural tasks according to the lunar calendar for millennia, and to this day, the vaunted Old Farmer's Almanac includes regional lunar calendars and advice on when to conduct farm chores. The Almanac's editor, Jance Stillman, says that information is of value to our readers who practice these traditional methods and claim great success.
Okay. All right, so let's go back to the question. Which choice most effectively sets up the paragraph? Answer choice A. Let's test these. Does answer choice A effectively set up that paragraph? Caroline, what do you think?
I feel like it could be better.
I feel like it could be better too. What don't you like about A? You're so nice, Caroline. You're nice even to bad answer choices. Like, it's not my favorite. It's bad. What's wrong with it?
Like, it's too abrupt, like a beginning.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Blazer, Ava?
Doesn't it like not the first sentence? Doesn't it not go with like the rest of this?
Yeah, it doesn't match at all, right? I mean, like the paragraphs. It's not about like how long nature has been around. That's just not the point of the paragraph, right? I mean, the ideas don't match. It sounds bad, and the ideas don't match. Does that make sense, Caroline?
Yes.
Yeah, I want you to practice being cruel to bad answer choices. Okay? Like, if you're reading, like, boy, that doesn't sound right. You can almost always eliminate it. Almost always. No, let me rephrase that. Always. Just eliminate it, okay? It's terrible. There are bad ideas in the world. Lots of them. Oh, boy. All right, let's try answer choice B.
Okay, people all over the world farm by the moon.
Okay, does that effectively set up a paragraph?
I think so.
Okay. Looking at the paragraph now. It's not bad. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have any thoughts? Blaze or Ava?
It does kind of illustrate like a good introduction to how the paragraph talks about the moon as well as like farming and later in the passage.
Okay.
So I think that I wouldn't eliminate it.
Okay,
yet.
let's keep it. Answer choice C. Go ahead and read that for me, please.
Farming by the moon is not new. And that doesn't really make sense to put in the first thing.
Why not?
Because they're not really talking about how it's new or old, really. Are they?
That's a good question. Look at the paragraph. So you asked the question, they're not really talking about whether farming by the moon is new or old, are they? Are they?
Okay, actually maybe they are, because they said like the Chinese and Egyptian people performed agricultural tasks according to the lunar calendar for millennia. So,
yeah, that's like thousands of years, right?
Yeah. So maybe don't get rid of that one.
Yeah. Let's keep it. Let's try D.
Talk of the moon's influence is far-reaching.
What do you think about D? Does that effectively set up the paragraph?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree. Why not? I agree with you. I think you're right.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
I just feel like the other two are better.
Yeah, but I want you to understand why. Why do you guys think that D is not great? Why is it bad?
It doesn't really sound formal, I guess. Like no one really says talk of the then subject, you know?
Yeah, I think there's an issue. It's not just with the tone or the style. I think it's just like, it's not about the talk of the moon's influence. I mean, that's just not the subject. Right? I mean, we're talking about farming by the moon. Right? Not talk of the moon's influence.
Right.
Big difference there. Right? I mean, it's sort of on topic about the moon, but we're talking about farming by the moon, not talking about the moon's influence. Do you see the difference there between those two subjects?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, those are distinct ideas. It's not about the talk of the moon's influence. It's just not, very simply. Okay. So what's better, B or C? You guys look at the paragraph. One definitely matches and sets up the paragraph. And one, when you look closely, just doesn't work. Looks like it might, but it doesn't. What's better, B or C, Caroline? Go with your gut instinct here.
I think it's B.
What do you guys think?
I want to say it's C because it's saying farming by the moon is not new, which refers that it was done in the past, and it talks about the history of, you know, the Chinese and Egyptian people performing lunar farming, I guess.
Every single one of these examples in the paragraph is a reference to farming by the moon in the past. First century Roman naturalist, right? That was 2,000 years ago. Chinese and Egyptian people perform these tasks for millennia, right? The Old Farmer's Almanac, which goes way back, right? Literally hundreds of years. I think like Benjamin Franklin had a hand in starting that. Okay? These are all examples of farming by the moon in the past.
Okay, that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
B is so tempting because because it does reference people in other parts of the world. But what's the issue with B? What's the issue? Seems to work. Yeah. What's the issue?
It's just like, I don't really know how to explain it.
It doesn't really illustrate like time, I guess.
Not at all. In fact, it's the wrong time. It's present tense. People all over the world farm by the moon. If they gave us examples of people all over the world farming presently by the moon, we'd be fine. But it's not. It's people that used to farm by the moon, that have farmed by the moon. And maybe have continued to this day. But it's about people that in the past, for thousands of years, that farmed by the moon. Does that make sense why B's bad?
Yes.
Bad answer. Just so tempting. I think I got this one wrong the first time I took this test as well. I think I picked answer choice B. It sounds so good. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think answer choice C sounds great. It just doesn't sound great. It sounds too short. I would never write like that. Ever. I don't like it that much. I really don't. But does it most effectively set up the paragraph when you look closely? Absolutely. Does that make sense?
Yes.
They're never asking the question, which one you like the most? That is not a question. All right. Which one most effectively sets up the paragraph? It's C, and it ain't B. Even though B sounds great, it just doesn't effectively set up the paragraph. Okay. All right. Let's do Blaze. Great job there, Carolyn, breaking that down. Thank you. Blaze, go ahead and read. We need to do 28. So take it from Chinese and Egyptian people, please.
Alrighty. So Chinese and Egyptian people performed agricultural tasks according to the lunar calendar for millennia. And to this day, the vaunted Old Farmer's Almanac includes regional lunar calendars and advice on when to conduct farm chores.
All right. Read 28 for me, please.
Alrighty. Which choice provides the most specific information on the type of advice a lunar calendar offers?
Really specific question here, Blaze. What are we trying to find here? What answer choice?
On what type of advice the lunar calendar offers?
Be more specific than that. What answer choice are we looking for?
Let's see.
The
Most specific?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
The most specific information on the type of advice a lunar calendar offers. Okay. Let's read A again, the underlined portion.
Okay, so you just want me to do the whole sentence again?
Just read the underlined portion. That's good.
Okay, so when to conduct farm chores.
Okay. Does that provide specific information on the type of advice a lunar calendar offers?
Not really.
Yeah, I mean, it's not terrible. Let's read some of the others. Can we eliminate it? I mean, farm chores are kind of specific, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Let's leave it as it is right now. Go ahead and read B.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't eliminate it yet. Okay, so and then second, actions relevant to farming.
Is that provide specific information on the type of advice a lunar calendar offers?
Not really.
No.
It's
Well, what's more specific, A or B?
I think A probably is.
A is more specific. And here again, this reminds me of a previous question we did where I said just compare two at a time, right? If they're asking for which one does this the most, you don't have to read all four and then pick the one that you think is the best. Just test two at a time and compare them, right? So it's just between A and B. I call this answer choice death match, right? I'm just comparing A and B, and I'm going to eliminate one of them, right? Two answer choices walk into the ring, and only one leaves. Right, so I'm going to eliminate B just because it's not nearly specific as A. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, let's read C and then we'll compare it to A.
Okay, points in time at which to undertake certain tasks.
Does that provide specific information on the type of advice a lunar calendar offers?
Not specific at all.
Boy,
it's saying certain tasks instead of like farm chores.
That's awful. And like points in time in general, like doesn't tell you exactly when or what. It's very vague. A is better than C. I would eliminate C. All right, let's try D.
And D sounds the best with optimal times to plant, weed, prune, and harvest.
Oh, great. Yeah. It's definitely better than A. It is answer choice D. Any questions about that, guys?
Nope.
Okay. And then again, I love that death match method. Again, if you can just compare two answer choices at a time, that's great. Let's finish this 29, then we take a little break. Ava, go ahead and read that last sentence, the paragraph, please.
The Almanac's editor, Janice Stillman, says, That information is of value to our readers who practice these traditional methods and claim great success.
What are they testing us on here, Ava?
Possessives.
Possessives, absolutely. Can you eliminate any obviously incorrect answer choices?
Almanacs is.
Yeah, that's rough, right? That's not a thing. Thank goodness. That's just not how words work and possessives work. B is gone. What else?
Probably A, because it's not possessive.
It's not possessive, right? There's no apostrophe there. We need apostrophe. It's not a commonly confused possessive with no apostrophe. It's just a word. We need an apostrophe.
And then you can also eliminate D because it's not plural.
Right, that would be the plural form. Absolutely. Right, if we look at the rules for writing, right, the plural form is the apostrophe is going to be after the S. And here are we talking about one almanac or multiple almanacs is?
There's one almanac.
Just one almanac, right? The Old Farmer's Almanac. So we said we can eliminate what? D or C?
D.
D, absolutely. And there's answer choice C. Singular form of the possessive. Any questions about that, guys?
Nope.
No? Good. Is this all making sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. I'm telling you, this is if you just know the rules for writing, this is so easy. You either have to directly answer a specific question they're asking you, or you're just following the rules. That's it. If you know the rules, it's a breeze. You guys are doing great. Let's take a little 3-minute break, okay? And then we'll just see if we can finish this practice test by the end of the class. All right?
Alrighty.
All right. I look forward to seeing you guys here in just a couple minutes.